baby. You up? 215-592-9494. I'm your host, by the way, Ryan Rothstein at Wise Rye. Tyler Hood is producing the show here. The overnight show weekend edition at Wise Rye is where you can find me on social media, and you can find me right here live in the Tasty Cake studios of 94 WIP, 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. Get involved in the conversation. 215-592-9494. A lot on tap here throughout the night/morning. So, let's get it started. I heard my guy Sean Bell talking a little bit in the 1 a.m. hour about Jalen Hurts and how he stacks up and how we should put some respect on this damn name. We'll get into that as well. We'll get into the Eagles and the Titans. A.J. Brown going up against his former team. We got Jordan Davis back, activated, will return to action. That's the latest report, at least. Gardner Johnson out. He's placed on the IR. But besides that, Eagles are healthy, relatively healthy otherwise. So pretty good news there. This Eagles team is 10-1, if you didn't know. All right, the Birds are 10-1. They're in position to lock up the number one seed in the NFC. Not right now, but they're number one right now as we speak, so that's a good sign. The division is going from NFC least to NFC beast, just the toughest division in all of football, Ty. So there's really no room for an exhale for the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's just fine. In this matchup against the Tennessee Titans, it has been circled for a lot of us on our calendars as sort of a measuring stick type of a matchup. Well, you got King Henry, got a well-coached football team. Eagles, what's been their one weakness that we've all talked about till we're blue in the face? Their run defense. How is this going to play out? Despite them winning 10 of their first 11 games, there's still some cautious optimism. Probably not the best way to put it, but this Eagles team is loaded on paper. This Eagles team is number one in the NFC. This Eagles team has an MVP at starting quarterback. They have the favorite right now in the betting market to win Coach of the Year in Nick Sirianni. They have a star wide receiver for the first time really since T.O. in A.J. Brown. They have the best cornerback duo in all of the NFL. They have the best offensive line in all of the NFL. Yet there is way too much disrespect, part one, and then there's way too much caution and criticism and fear surrounding this Eagles team. And that's where we're going to start. And I want to ask you out there, why? 215-592-9494. And maybe you don't agree with any of that. Maybe that's not you. Well, if it's not, I want to hear from you. And if it is, I certainly want to hear from you. Like, what are your expectations right now for this Eagles team? Because mine are clear. It's to win the NFC and get to the Super Bowl. Like, that's my minimum bar. This is a Super Bowl team. This may be the most talented Eagles roster in their franchise history. I'll repeat it again. This may be the most talented Eagles roster in their franchise history. But just the pulse of the city and the optimism and confidence throughout the Delaware Valley for Eagles fans, you wouldn't know it. The excitement around Philly and throughout the area, it's there, but it's always there. And given what and who this team is, as I've described already, the excitement level doesn't seem to match the reality. All right, the Eagles are always king in this town, but at 10-1 with an MVP favorite at quarterback, an elite star wide receiver in Brown, and I'm going to repeat this because it needs to be repeated. A coach who's favorite to win Coach of the Year, best cornerback duo in the NFL, best O-line in the NFL, star power, big names up and down the roster. I have to ask you out there, what gives? 215-592-9494. I'm your host, Ryan Rothstein. Overnight show, weekend edition on this December 4th. What the heck? December already. I also want to ask you out there a little side topic. What's the greatest album of all time? We'll have some fun with that conversation. So I'm asking everyone out there, what gives? And I'll get a little bit more into that. What's holding you back, or just everyone back, as an Eagles fan? Are things going too well / better than expected? Are you waiting for, quote, the other shoe to drop? Are you afraid that Jalen Hurts will not perform in the playoffs? Are you afraid the run defense is going to get exposed? Special teams will cost them? Like, what is it? Because as I mentioned, my expectations for this Eagles team right now are clear: to win the NFC Championship. That's my bar. How can it be anything less than that? Right? Like, I almost feel like I'm being a little bit too reserved. I should just come out and say to win the Super Bowl. But I'm being a little bit fair. I would be disappointed if they don't make the Super Bowl based off of how this season has played out up to this point. I'm expecting this team to come out of the NFC. I'm expecting this team to have home field advantage, to lock up the number 1 seed eventually, to win their 2 home games, and fly out to the desert in Arizona to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. Those are my expectations as it stands at 2:08 a.m. Eastern Time on December 4th, standing in the 94 WIP studios talking to you out there. That's my expectation. And why, as a fan base, as a group overall, are we not more confident and more excited for the possibilities of this 2022 Eagles team and the possibility of this 2022 Eagles team bringing us another world championship? It's the weirdest thing to me. So let's talk about it out there. What are your expectations, and what are the reasons, if any, that this team doesn't seem to be getting the respect that they deserve from us overall as a fan base? 215-592-9494. I'm your host, Ryan Rothstein. Tyre Hood is producing. And Ty, before I get into a little bit more and a few more of my points, I want to ask you, what are your expectations? And do you agree with me, and maybe you disagree, which is fine, do you agree with me on the lack of respect that this team is getting overall from the fan base?
I do agree overall that this Philadelphia Eagles team, and it's not just the fan base, but also if you look at the national pundits and how they're ranking them now, like now they're placing them as the third or fourth best team overall in the NFL.
Yeah.
So do I feel like this team is getting some disrespect? Yeah, I do feel like it, especially considering that week in and week out they just continue to find different ways to win, even though we clearly know what their flaws are. We talk about them verbatim every week.
It's almost annoying, though. Like the focus, and that's what we do. That's part of what makes us great as fans here in Philly, is just talking out and pointing out the flaws and everything. We don't miss a beat. This team's won 10 of 11 games, and don't give me their schedule stinks. All right, everyone's schedule stinks right now in the NFL. And yes, this team does have flaws, Ty. They don't seem to be that bad. They're 10-1.
And that's the big thing for me. I mean, I've been cautiously optimistic, not going to lie. I'm not going to say I've been disrespecting this team. I've been very high on this team, but I'm still cautiously optimistic.
Why?
That this team is going to make the Super Bowl. I don't know. It's just
why? Because I am at times too, bro. Sorry to cut you off, but why?
I don't know. Maybe it's just the old Philly thing where I just can't get over that aspect of it. I don't know. Maybe I've been scarred too much in the past from seeing great teams and falling short. I don't know. I'm not ready to say that this team is necessarily a Super Bowl team, but I will say that I have an expectation of them going deep into the playoffs.
What's deep? What's deep?
Deep is winning the division.
All right, well, that's not anything in the playoffs. Do you expect one playoff win, 2 playoff wins?
I do. I expect at least one playoff win.
Okay. All right. 215-592-9494. I'm your host, Ryan Rothstein. Myself and Ty will continue to talk this out and hopefully talk it out with you out there. Phone lines are open if you want to jump on board. We got you until 6 a.m. Ty said he's cautiously optimistic. And I feel that because I feel that with myself at times. Why are we cautiously optimistic, right? Yeah. I've heard so many different reasons. The run defense. Jalen Hurts running. Hurts just in general. Gannon stinks. They haven't played anybody.
Which, by the way, Jalen Hurts should not be the main reason why you should be I'm cautiously optimistic about this team. Jalen Hurts should be the last thing on people's minds. I don't care if he runs or throws the football. Either way, we're winning.
Well, let me ask you this. I agree with you. But is the lack of sample size fair? Right? Like, we haven't seen – we only have one playoff game with Jalen Hurts.
Right.
And I'm not putting that loss all on him because the team just wasn't good enough last year, and they were just happy to be there type of a deal. But, that's all we have to go off of. So I think that's a huge part in the fans' like cautious optimism. Do you agree with that or no?
I do agree with that because you can only go based off of what you see and what you know, and what we saw in that playoff game against the Bucs wasn't necessarily good. But you could still, based off of that, though, you can also make the argument that you see what this man has been doing this past year.
He's a different person.
He's a completely different quarterback.
Different person, right? Like, I just feel like we're not appreciating this team right now. And it sounds crazy because I know there's a ton of people out there, listeners out there right now that are excited, that are fully appreciative, that are confident, that are giving them the respect they deserve. But if you're one of those people out there that are positive and giving them the respect, you know that you know plenty of people out there that aren't. Right? And it's just crazy. They're 10-1, and I think I don't want to make this a Jalen Hurts conversation, but that's just the reality and the direction that this ends up going. He's the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, and everyone who's a football fan, an NFL fan, will give us the Chiefs as the number 1 or number 2 team right now. Why? Their roster stinks.
But it's easy.
Mahomes.
Yep.
Right. It's Mahomes. He's been there. He's done that. They have a model of consistency, a championship model of excellence. They have a Hall of Fame coach, and they have a tight end as well, a big-name tight end in Kelsey. That's it. No one needs to know anything else about their roster because that's good enough for the majority of the football fan out there. If you did this exercise, if you went and printed out the Kansas City Chiefs roster and went and printed out the Philadelphia Eagles roster, the Philadelphia Eagles roster from top to bottom is head and shoulders better than the Kansas City Chiefs. But the majority of the NFL fan base will say the Chiefs, and the confidence is all lying with the Kansas City Chiefs just simply because of Patrick Mahomes. Football is a brutal game. It's a difficult game. You have 11 starters on each side of the ball. Yes, the quarterback has the biggest impact. He touches it on every play on offense. But you need everyone to be doing their jobs. If one person doesn't do their job on one play, on either side, that can cost you a playoff game. It's not like NBA, where it's like, oh, I have Luka, or oh, I have LeBron in his prime. We're good. It's not like that. A star quarterback needs a star wide receiver, needs a star coach, needs a star offensive line, needs a strong defense, right? Like you need all of the above or else you're not winning a championship. We know that firsthand here in Philly, 2017. And I do want to get into that a little bit, 2017, and compare that team to this year's team. That's coming up a little bit later. 215-592-9494. What are your expectations for this Eagles team? And why aren't they getting the respect that a 10-1 Philadelphia Eagles team should be garnering right now at this point in our city? Is it Jalen Hurts? Is it other? Is it just, I don't know. Let's talk it out. I'm also asking you out there, the greatest album of all time. Right, 215-592-9494. Jalen Hurts has been MVP-like. But we do have a problem, as Tyer pointed out, trusting in this town. And I know there's a small portion in a lot of you out there that are just curious, to put it nicely, on what version of Jalen Hurts will we get? How will Jalen Hurts perform in the playoffs when the lights are officially on? Which is fair. I don't know if I 100% feel that. I do a little bit. We're allowed to wonder, and it is fair to question a quarterback on playoff performance when the sample size just flat out is not there. But that shouldn't hold us back right now from enjoying this championship contender, because contenders like this team that we have right now, they do not come around very often.
Okay, don't worry about it. Enjoy the win, man.
That's right. And to try and pick apart small, tiny weaknesses that have yet to even hold this team back, it's ridiculous. It's flat out ridiculous.
Now, I'm not saying completely ignore these issues, because
No.
I'm not saying – so the run defense is really like maybe the least of my concern. Probably the biggest one is the special teams, honestly. And you're right. It has yet to bite them in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't want to see it bite them in the ass and have to be one of those people to be like, oh, I told you so.
Right. I get it. I'm with you. Of course. None of us want to see that. I'm not worried about the special teams. Like, we can talk about the special teams, and yes, they need to be better. But come on. I think we're being a little bit idiotic if we're saying we don't believe in this team, and the reason why is the freaking special teams. They're 10-1. Come on, we can be better than this. We can be better than this, people. You know, I think it's the fact that this team is 10-1. Right? None of us really knew what to expect. Some of us were more optimistic than others right now as far as what to expect from Jalen this year. Those debates were exhausting in the offseason. What to expect with the new additions, everything. And now we're 10-1 with not a whole heck of a lot to complain about. And we're like, well, now what? And you look at the recent success of Philadelphia sports teams making championship runs in this town. They've all been underdogs. And here in Philly, we love our underdogs. That's just the reality. Look at this Phillies team that just took us on a magic carpet ride to the World Series. Squeaked into the playoffs. We knew they had the talent, but they certainly weren't performing like how they were in the postseason, right? You look at the 2017 Eagles, enough said. We all know what happened there. You look at the 2010 Philadelphia Flyers and that run that they went on. The 08 Phillies, they were a good team. We didn't expect that. They were the worst of the teams from 08 to 12. The 01 Sixers, right? Like, you look at the past 20 years, the best teams in all four sports, they've sort of been underdogs. And now this Eagles team sits at 10-1, a surprising 10-1. And I don't think we know how to act. So let's talk about it. 215-592-9494. I'm your host, Ryan Rothstein. Overnight show here on Sports Radio 94 WIP. Taher Hood is hanging with me, producing the show, helping you get involved in the conversation. Keep the calls coming. I'm going to squeeze a call or two in here. And then if I don't get to you, don't worry. I'm going to make sure we start off the next segment with you. So before we take our first time out, I'm in a rhythm, so we're going to keep it going. Let's go to Quentin in Center City. He wants to join us on the Eagles conversation. Quentin, you're on WIP.
Good morning, guys. How you guys doing?
Doing good, man. How are you?
Okay, before I get into my point, best album, What's Going On, Marvin Gaye.
All right, I like it.
Okay, so this is the thing with the Eagles. Before the season started, we looked at the roster. We knew we had the worst schedule in reference to the teams we was playing. So when we was counting it down, we figured they would be this, like, as far as record-wise, that we will have a lot of wins. Now, because we beat up on a bunch of tomato cans. It's okay that we're doing this.
Yeah.
I am very, very high on the Eagles, and I don't think it's Super Bowl or bust for me. I think that we're set up to go and do well in the next couple of years. But we've seen this being done before. We could go to the Baltimore Ravens 14-2 team when Lamar.
Yeah, but Quentin, hold on. I don't mean to cut you off. I'm keeping you on the air here, but I know where you're going with that. So let me just chime in for a second. I hear you, and that's more than fair, right? The Steelers a couple of years ago started 11-0. We've seen teams get out to a scorching hot start, 10, 12, 13, 14 games in, even finish with a really strong record of only 2 or 3 losses or less and not get there. But so what? Right? Like, that should not negatively impact how our vibes are right now with this team. Right? Like, this team right now is a championship contender.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. Championship contender. Do I think we're going to win it? Do I think that this is a Super Bowl winning team? I do not think that.
Why?
I believe that. I'm telling you.
All right.
And that style of quarterback haven't won a Super Bowl yet.
No, that. What do you mean? No. You're
give me the guy who as dual
Patrick
as
Mahomes.
Jalen is that won a Super Bowl.
Patrick Mahomes, Ben Roethlisberger, Russell Wilson.
He's not as dual as Jalen. No.
Yes, he is. He was in his prime,
serious?
man. Dude, all he did was extend plays and take hits.
Ben would shake you off, but he's not running for a buck something like Lamar.
All right.
Like
Okay, fine. What about Patrick Mahomes?
He ain't running like Lamar, like Jalen. He's not doing it either. He's doing it with his arm.
Come on. Yeah, but listen, Jalen Hurts is different as a runner. He's a smart runner. He doesn't take many hits. He takes what the defense gives him, despite his high number of rushing attempts.
Great smart runner also.
Yeah, I don't think Lamar Jackson. I hear you, but hold on. I don't think Lamar Jackson is nearly as good of a passer as Jalen Hurts.
I mean, okay. I'm not going to go there because Lamar got an MVP.
I know he does.
And he did before he got hurt last year. He was throwing that ball all around. Like I don't want to make no comparison.
All right, fine. But we can agree to disagree on Jalen Hurts' style is a problem, and
I'm not saying it's a problem. It just haven't won yet.
Yeah,
it just hasn't won yet.
Yeah, I just don't.
I'm high on the team. I'm excited, but I'm not one who thinks if we don't win the Super Bowl, it's a bust. No.
I don't necessarily listen right now, though, Quentin. And I appreciate the call, man. Thank you. Good stuff. This team's 10-1. Right? Like, if they end up getting the 1 seed in the NFC, a first-round bye, home games in the playoffs, what do you mean your expectation is not for them to get to the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl? This team is excellent right now. Jalen Hurts is excellent right now. You have a star wide receiver, a superstar wide receiver. You have a superstar offensive line, a superstar cornerback duo. I mean, like, I can go on and on. We all know what this team is made of. 215-592-9494. I'm your host, Ryan Rothstein. James in Southwest Philly, I see it. You are first when we come back from break, and the rest of you out there will get to you when we return as well. Keep the calls coming. Tire Hood will get you up on deck, on the board, and we'll get you right involved in the conversation. I'm your host, Ryan Rothstein. What are your expectations for this Eagles team? Why